Welcome to Ask the Superintendent, a podcast created to have a candid conversation with the superintendent and his leadership team based on your questions. We know your child's education at Little Elm ISD matters, and it is important for you, our community, to have access to the information you need by asking important questions to the leaders who make decisions. The topics we discuss are endless, but very important. Our vision is to become the destination district by building great schools, great community, furthering education, one question at a time. Hey everyone, Cecelia Jones for the Director for Communication for Little Elm ISD. Nearly forgot who I was there for a minute, but we want to talk today about a political hot topic that's out there. It's all over social media. You've seen news organizations do stories about it, and it's about library books. Here recently, we've heard from community members, and we've really ramped up our processes and reviewing. And with me is our Superintendent, Daniel Gallagher, and our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Learning, Dr. Tramel, who's going to go into detail about reviewing and how we put that in place and just kind of what that looks like. Daniel, can you talk about library books and really what the issue is here?
Yeah, and as you say, this is something that, we've seen across the state. We've seen it really across the nation, library books being challenged. And, what I'll say is, when you're in a position of leadership, whether you're, a teacher, I consider everyone in education a leader because that's what we're doing. We're really in a position to help students grow, and we have an enormous responsibility. But when, somebody brings forward a library book that they don't believe, and I'll talk too about instructional materials that they don't believe, should be in our libraries, or instructional materials if a lesson is done in a classroom and, a parent is not comfortable with that lesson or that actual material that's used for that. We have a process in Little Elm ISD to go through to review those because at the end of the day, what we know is, we want to be responsive to our community members, to do what's best for our kids. So library books, obviously, it's something that I think everyone has heard about. It's, it's been on the news. It's been all over the place. But we've had some library book challenges in Little Elm ISD as of recently. And our board has adopted policies to, to address library books in a more focused manner, if maybe focused may not be the right word, but in the past we had one policy for challenging materials, instructional materials. It was EF local, and that policy lumped library books right in with instructional materials. So, teachers, their worksheets that they may use, their textbooks, all of that. So what the school board adopted was two different policies. One is called EFA local, and that still is for instruction materials. And then one is called EFB local, and that is for specific for library books. So we have a process that we follow. So any community member, any parent, anyone in Little Elm ISD who is a taxpayer, they have the right to look at our library materials. We have all of our library books, the access to the titles on all of our websites. We are a very transparent district, so everything you need to know is on our website, and if it's not, we'll get it there. So we have a very thorough process, and I'd be happy to let Dr. Tramel talk a little bit more about that process.
Yeah. So explain the process of reviewing those books that are brought forth when a parent or a community member complains.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So since the board adopted new policy in July, we have worked hard to align our administrative processes to the new policy. We start with an informal meeting at the campus level to try to work out whatever the complainant has issues with the library book. And then that can move to a formal challenge, which we start at the district level, reviewing the book through the lens of the penal code. And there are actually two parts of the penal code that we look at. One is obscenity, and then one is harmful effects for a minor. So we look carefully at each book that is challenged through those two parts of the penal code. If the book is determined to violate the penal code, then it is placed on our list of books that violate the penal code. If not, then it goes to a formal reconsideration committee made up of community members and professionals such as librarians and staff that look carefully and use a more formalized process to look at the book through the lens of our community values and appropriateness with instruction, curriculum instruction.
So are these committee members reading the books from front to back?
Great question. So the Penal Code Committee reviews the books first, and what we've done is we've taken the Penal Code and we have created a matrix with a glossary so that that particular committee is very calibrated and very, it's pretty black and white. And so we look at those two pieces of the penal code and then passages and parts of the book that are being challenged to determine, is it acceptable for through the lens of the penal code or is it not? And then with the formal committee, they have guiding questions that they use and discuss to determine if the book is appropriate to stay, available.
And while it's being reviewed, I've heard some chatter that the district bans the book. They don't make it available while it's being reviewed, but banning probably is not the right word, right?
Yeah, and I would say, as far as making it available, if it's checked out because it's being reviewed or going through the penal code process or through a committee process, it obviously wouldn't be available for any student to check out. And I think that's, that's as far as it still being available, it's still in the inventory until it goes through that process. And, if it is removed, we post it on our website.
So if a parent is interested in filing a complaint, how do they go about doing that?
So under support services, under library media services, we have a form. It's an informal complaint form, and they would start by filling out that form and contacting their campus principal. And once they have that meeting, the principal has the formal reconsideration form that the parent could choose to fill out if they're not satisfied with the results of that first informal meeting.
Mr. Gallagher, is there, any more information that you would want to include on the processes and the district policy? Does this align with a lot of school districts? Is this what they're doing?
Yeah, and you're going to see more and more districts in the area and really across the state adopting EFA and EFB local. This was provided, from TEA, and I think this is going to be a topic that we're going to continue to see, even at the state level. People are talking about it. Our number one goal here in Little Elm ISD is, and I've always said it is safety. It's keeping kids safe. Parents, and I've said it on this podcast, parents want two things for their kids, ultimately. They want them to come home happy, and they want them to be safe at school. So what we've done, again, is we're following board policy. We will everything that we have related to this is on our website. So any community member can look at our website, can find all of the information that we just shared, all of the, the details. There's even a flow chart.
Right, we have a flow chart.
There's a flow chart that explains this. So, obviously it's one of those, and you said this in a previous podcast, sometimes these podcasts, we're not afraid to talk about challenging topics, uncomfortable topics. This is one that it's a challenge, and it's something that, we want to do what's right for kids at the end of the day. And, we're definitely focused on kids first and keeping our kids safe and doing the right thing.
I appreciate you guys joining us today for this topic on library books. If you've got a question you want to ask the superintendent, please submit your question using the form that is complimentary of this podcast that you can find on social media. And then maybe we will use your question in an upcoming podcast. But for now, we'll see you until next time.